Hey Indie Gamers, Tyler Oliver here with Take This Studios again. This time we're taking a look at Eufloria, brought to us by the developer Omni Systems, available on itch.io for $14.99, but they also have a deluxe edition, and since having played the game I would definitely recommend for $19.99, which includes a few extras, as in the soundtrack as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. The game itself is an RTS, and fits the genre pretty well in a redefined way. It's actually really interesting and really quick to get into. Once you play, you'll see why I'm going to call this bejeweled addictive. You will lose a lot of time on this. It's very interesting and it's hard to step away from. It starts out pretty simple, very introductory with a very tutorial sense to it. It's actually a pretty good idea to go ahead and get your mechanics down for smoother gameplay later on. The gameplay in and of itself is very similar to most RTSs in that you're controlling units, in this case seedlings, from asteroid to asteroid to colonize and grow, essentially, just like plants would do, I assume. However, what surprised me is the introduction of a story into this one. It starts out as a rather nebulous thread about which you're constantly learning more, and that was the driving force for me to keep playing. They are very, very selective about what bits of the story that they introduce at what time, and it's very, very enticing and keeps you playing very well. So the story outright surprised me in the delivery. Moving on, the challenge here ramps up as you get to the mid-game point and go later on. It's got a reasonable difficulty curve, and like I said, it really warrants getting the mechanics down. The visuals, as you may or may not be able to see, are very, very dynamic. They're very, very crisp and excellently done, and they have a stylistic sense to the art and the artistry of them. So it's always great to look at it and zoom in and out, and like to get a fuller view of the map you zoom all the way out, but it's really worth it to zoom in and actually see what's going on. They did a lot of good work visually for this game, and it's optimized very, very well. I'm very impressed by the visuals of this game. Getting back to the soundtrack that we talked about, the soundtrack is mostly ambience, but it's got a real trip-hop kind of groove to it. Like I can feel it. You know, you only notice the soundtrack if it's either really, really bad or really, really good. If it's just so-so, you don't really notice it because it just fits. In this case, it's really, really good. Like I said, I would definitely recommend getting that deluxe edition if you're at all into music. Eufloria has been around for a little while now in various sources, but it's been re-released with itch.io with the deluxe edition, like I said earlier, and very much worth it one more time. It's like watching a poetry, and coupled with the soundtrack, it's very visually pleasing. It's very aesthetic. The game is challenging without being overly so, and it's just a wonderful playthrough. I'm not done with it just yet, and I'm going to be finishing it up here in the next couple of nights. So finishing up, I have to give this one a solid recommendation. Eufloria gave me nothing but joy. I didn't note it. It was flawless. And of course I know there are some flaws in there, but at the end of the day, this was just so much fun. It was so easy to get into. It was very, very immersive, for lack of another word. And I gotta give this one that solid recommendation. You should get out there, you should play this game if you haven't already. If you want to see what my first experience was like, my first impressions of the game, we'll have a link in the description below to what I'm calling the First Look, a new series of videos just to take a look at indie gamings that I want to get more exposure, games that I had a lot of fun with. So take a look at that if you're interested, and we'll see you next time. Though I will have to say, playing this at 3 in the morning, I got the distinct underlying sense of like fertility or something. You're these little seedlings going and planting trees in these asteroids, and yeah.